Hello class, how are you? I hope everybody's doing well. I apologize for not having gotten a video out earlier this week. This is the week that we moved into our new place, so you are seeing me in our new townhome. But I'm glad to be with you again, and I hope you're taking really good care of yourself and that you're doing well and staying home and staying healthy. So today we're going to pick up on our lesson. Last time we talked about past continuous, so we'll talk about that again, and we're going to add a little bit more to it. So if you want to, you can get out your white books, and last time we stopped on page 113. You might remember this picture. Okay, so we're going to be talking about past continuous again. All right, so use this. We'll try some notes this way, see if it works. Okay, so just to remember what past continuous is. So past continuous talked about actions that were happening at a specific time in the past. They were not completed. Okay, so we get the idea that they're happening over time, and they use a to be verb, so either was or were, and the verb plus ing. All right, so these are when they ask you a question like, what were you doing last night at 7 p.m.? So that was the question that you had if you're looking in your book at page 113. So on page 113 in your book, you see a whole family all together, and everyone is doing something different. And so part of what we asked you to do was to look at that picture and to write sentences for each person. So if each person had to answer the question, what were you doing at 7 o'clock? And you can look in the picture and see that the clock says 7 o'clock. So for each person, what were you doing at 7 o'clock last night? So when we look at that picture, we see Bill. And so these are the answers in that format. So you look at Bill, he's sitting in that comfortable chair with his feet up. We can say Bill was reading. Now I could make it longer. I could say Bill was reading at 7 o'clock, or I can just say Bill was reading. So I have the subject, Bill, right? So Bill, right here, Bill was reading. So reading is read plus ing. Was is our to be verb. Bill was reading. Okay, so Pedro, can you find Pedro? He looks like he's the grandfather, I think maybe. He looks older, and he is very relaxed in the other chair, and he is sleeping. So Pedro, at 7 o'clock last night, Pedro was sleeping. All right, so Jan and Sandra, they're on the floor, and you see them with a game. So what were John, what were John and Sandra doing last night? John and Sandra were playing a game. So this time I have to use were because two people, so it's like they. They were playing a game. John and Sandra were playing a game. So here's that picture that's in your book. So if you don't have your white book for some reason, there's the picture. This was the grandfather, Pedro. You see Bill in the chair. The children on the floor, they were playing a game. Okay, then maybe if I asked you, what was Maria doing last night? And there's Maria. What would you say? She, or you can say, oh, actually that's Judy. What was Judy doing? Judy was talking on the phone. They give you all the root forms of the verbs there, so you just have to find the verb. She was talking on the phone. What was Alyssa doing? So this is Alyssa right here. What was Alyssa doing? Maybe you know how to do this too. My mother used to do this. Alyssa was knitting. And Maria, the one that I thought this was Maria, she is sitting on the couch or the sofa next to Alyssa, and Maria is sewing. Okay, so I hope you did well on that, didn't have any questions. So past progressive is one form of past. The other form of past, the first form you learned probably, was just simple past. So simple past is when the action is completed in the past. So here's just a little bit of notes on that and some examples. Simple past is when the action is finished. If it's a regular simple past, we just add ed. Or if it ends in a y, we'll drop the y and add ied. So if I asked you, what did you do today? Or what did you do this morning? Okay, so if it's regular, we add ed. Like the second sentence here, I can say, I brushed my hair. So brush is present tense. I can just add ed for past. I brushed my hair. Okay, I cleaned my house. It's just add ed. But not all of them are regular. Some of them, you just have to memorize them. So wake up is present, but past tense is woke up. I woke up. I ate breakfast. Okay, so you know all this. This is just normal past tense, simple past. So we'll call this simple past, not past progressive. Those are different. But sometimes we want to use both of those together in one sentence. Okay, so here's a timeline that shows now is right in the middle. And on one side we see the past, and over here we see the future, and right in the middle is now. So if I wanted to tell you a story about something that happened, let's say last night, and I could say, Tim and I, we were watching a movie. If you say, what happened? What were you doing? I can say, we were watching a movie. Now that's not simple past, that's that past progressive. We were watching a movie, and then there's an interruption. Okay, do you remember this word, interruption? What's an interruption? Okay, I just want to make sure you know, because all of these will have an interruption in them. An interruption is when something stops the activity that's happening. So, for example, sometimes when maybe you are cooking dinner and something happens with your children, maybe they come running in and they are like, stop, somebody is hurt, you need to help. And you have to stop the cooking for now and you have to go and help your children. Sometimes that happens. Or sometimes if you are on the telephone, and this used to happen to me all the time when my children were small. If I would be talking on the phone, and that was when my children wanted my attention. They would be like, Mom, Mom, and they wanted to talk. So I had to tell my friend on the phone, just a minute, I have to take care of my children, because they would interrupt me. So interrupt is the verb, but when they make me stop, that's called interruption. Right now we have an interruption in our classes. We meet and you come to For the Nations for school, but right now we have to meet like this over the internet. We have an interruption because of coronavirus. So coronavirus caused the interruption of our classes. All right, so these type of sentences that are new, okay, that are on page 114 in your white book, they're when there is an interruption in the sentence. Okay, so here's our number line where we have past, now, and future. So let's say last night I'm going to write on this. So last night, Tim and I were watching a movie. So let me draw that. We were watching a movie. So we are just happily watching a movie, okay? No interruption, just watching a movie. And then, bring, there's a phone call. When there's a phone call, we have to push pause and stop the movie. Okay, so I drew a line and an X. That's the interruption, okay? So we were watching a movie when my phone rang. I'm not going to draw a phone. I'm just going to put ring so you can see it. Okay, so Tim and I were watching a movie last night when my phone rang. So I used both past tense in that sentence. We were watching a movie. That part is past progressive right here. We were watching a movie. You can see it takes place over time. We were watching a movie when my phone rang. Say rang is normal, simple past tense. My phone rang. We were watching a movie when my phone rang. So these are the kinds of sentences that you're going to make because many times this happens when you have something that interrupts an activity. Okay, so here's the same number line with the picture on there. I put watching TV. We were watching TV. There's the ring. And here's some sentences with them. Okay, so you can see how this is used. Now, there's two words. There's the word when and the word while, both of those. There's several ways you can put these sentences together, okay? So when the phone rang, we were watching TV. Okay, so notice rang, right here, is simple past. But were watching, that's past continuous. When the phone rang, we were watching TV. Okay, now in this sentence it has the word while. When and while, you can use those, both of those sentences, okay? While we were watching TV, the phone rang. Okay, here's two more. We were watching TV when the phone rang. Or the phone rang while we were watching TV. So here's 4 ways for us to make sentences with that. Now, if you look really carefully at these sentences, you might notice something about when do we use when and when do we use while. Really, both these words mean that one thing was happening and then there was an interruption. Okay? Now, you may have discovered this all by yourself, but here are the notes or the tips on when you can use these. So I'm going to give you this and then we'll go back and look at the sentences again. So the word when, use that word with the simple past. We use that word when we have the phrase with the simple past. We use it to talk about the action that does the interrupting. While, we use this word for the past continuous, like were watching TV, while we were watching TV. We use this for the action that happened before the interruption. We were watching TV before the phone rang. So while we were watching TV. Okay, so when is we use for simple past, while we use with past continuous. So there are also notes about this on page 114 in your white book. And then there's always a section in the back of your book that gives you even more information about this. It's on page 148. So you can go to the back and look for more information on page 148 about when and while. So hopefully copy these down. Remember, you can push pause to have more time. Let's see them again in these sentences. We use when with the simple past. Okay, when the phone rang, so when goes with rang. When the phone rang, we were watching TV. When the phone rang, we were watching TV. Or we can say it this way, while we were watching TV, the phone rang. While we were watching TV, the phone rang. Okay. We were watching TV. Okay. Here, we have a mistake there. This should be were. We were watching TV when the phone rang. Okay, so we were watching TV when the phone rang. If the when or the while is in the middle of the sentence, you do not need to use a comma. And this one down here, the phone rang while we were watching TV. So while goes with the progressive, with the past progressive. While we were watching TV. The phone rang while we were watching TV. Okay. Now let's see if we can look at some situations where there's an interruption and see if we can talk about them. So I want you to look in your book. I think it'll make more sense if you see some situations like that. So if you turn to page 115, on page 115, you will see some pictures that tell a story. Okay, so the first story is right here. So there's a girl there, and what is she doing? And then something happens. This is really bad. Do you remember last year when there were all the really terrible storms? Maybe she shouldn't have been sitting so close to the window. Okay, so this is what is happening first. So this gets the past progressive. And this one is in the simple past. Okay, so what was she doing? What was she doing? So if we use the same form that we were using maybe for the second sentence here, where it said, while we were watching TV, the phone rang. If we use that idea, we can say, while she was working on the computer, what happened? While she was working on the computer, a tree fell through the window and onto her computer. Terrible. So while This one gets the past progressive. This one gets simple past. While she was working on her computer, a tree fell through the window. Now, you could make it any of these other ways too. You just have to remember the rules, okay? So hopefully you stopped and you took notes when I put those up there, that you can look back to those notes. Okay, so let's just look at the pictures and make sure that we understand the pictures. You have this in your book on page 115. Okay, so I'm in this second set with the car right here. This couple is taking a ride in the car. Looks like they're having a very good time here. And then underneath the other picture, it says, run out of gas. So this is really bad. Now they can't go. So they are having a good time. Now they run out of gas and they are stuck. So we can just say they. We can say they. This happens first, so this one gets the past progressive. They were driving when they ran out of gas. They were driving when they ran out of gas. All right. This one is a little hard to see, but you see maybe it's a mother and a daughter, or maybe two friends, and they are in a restaurant. They are eating. They look like they're having a good time. All right, so the verb that they have there is eat. Now, in the next picture, you can see they are looking out the window and they see a police officer and she's writing a ticket. So maybe they didn't park in the right place. And the look on their face is like, oh no, I'm in trouble, right? So we could say, while, or let's see, if we want to start with, if we start with while, we need to say, like, while they were eating, the police officer gave them a ticket. So while goes with the past progressive, and then they have the simple past for the one that did the interrupting. Okay, and the last picture shows someone is cooking dinner, and then the lights go out. So then there's no lights. So what was he doing? That's the question you ask. What was he doing? He was cooking dinner when the lights went out. He was cooking dinner when the lights went out. Okay, so there's many ways you can use this as an example. You can use the notes in your book that are on the page before this, which is 114. To help you, you can use page 148. And what I want you to do I want you to use those pictures on this page 115, and I want you to try to write down those sentences. They don't have to be just what we said, but try to write these sentences for the 4 pictures, or really like 8 pictures, for the 4 stories that we just saw. Write sentences for those. And then I want you to read those sentences that you wrote. Read those to yourself, or you can read them to someone else. That way you hear the English too. If you want more practice, there's more practice with the same thing on page 106 in the green practice workbooks, and the answers to those are in the back of the book. So I will try to have another lesson up at the beginning of next week. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I look forward to meeting with you more often now that we're moved. Bye.